Guys, you need to grab onto your seats right now because what I'm about to tell you is going to absolutely rock your world and change everything we thought we knew about the current state of Port Charles. If you ask me, the tension has been building up like a ticking time bomb, and I have finally managed to piece together the truth about what is really happening behind the cold stone walls of Windermere. We have all been fed this lie that Jocelyn was off on some elite, top secret mission for the WSB under the direct orders of Brennan. But believe me when I say that the reality is far more sinister and terrifying than any of us could have ever imagined in our wildest dreams. I have spent the last few hours digging through the shadows, and what I found makes my skin crawl because it proves that while we were all looking the other way, something truly horrific was playing out right under our noses. The air in Port Charles feels heavy lately, doesn't it? Almost as if the city itself knows that a storm is brewing and that the dark secrets kept by the powerful families are finally starting to leak out into the open. Let me paint you a picture of the nightmare that Jocelyn has been living through while we all went about our lives, thinking she was out doing heroic work. She has been held in a secret, claustrophobic prison cell within the bowels of Windermere for weeks, completely cut off from the world we know. Can you imagine the sheer terror of being trapped in the darkness, waiting for a savior who doesn't even know you are missing? If you ask me, the fact that she managed to find a tiny, hidden tool in that cell is nothing short of a miracle. She fought for her freedom with every ounce of strength she had, picking the lock and slipping into those haunting, damp tunnels that snake beneath the island. I could almost hear the echoing sound of her footsteps on the cold stone, her heart racing as she navigated the maze, desperate for the scent of fresh air and the safety of the world she knows. But guys, the universe has a cruel way of twisting the knife just when you think you have found a glimmer of hope. Just as she was inches away from the exit, the shadow of a man emerged from the gloom. It was Pascal. The way he looked at her was chilling, as if she were nothing more than a common criminal he had finally cornered. He recognized her immediately from those days she spent working at the Numb Poppies, and the way he mocked her pathetic attempt at an escape makes me physically ill. He didn't just stop her, he dragged her back into the abyss with a level of cold, calculated cruelty that makes me realize we are dealing with a monster who answers to someone even more dangerous. He was actually considering calling Jin Sidwell or his handlers at the WSB to brag about how he had the situation perfectly under control. We are talking about a guy who thinks he is untouchable, but if you ask me, he just made the biggest mistake of his pathetic life by underestimating the fury of the people who love Jocelyn. While this dark drama was unfolding in the tunnels, I cannot help but be frustrated at how easily Carly and Valentin were fooled. They were so convinced that the cover story was real that they didn't even blink, trusting the system that has betrayed us all so many times before. It is such a classic Port Charles blunder, isn't it? To believe the narrative that is handed to you instead of looking for the cracks in the facade. But guys, fate has a funny way of intervening when we least expect it. Lucas was in the wrong place at the right time, or maybe the right place at the right time, depending on how you look at it. As he walked through the area near Windermere, he witnessed the whole thing, the capture, the taunting, the realization that Jocelyn was a prisoner in her own nightmare. The look on his face must have been one of pure, unadulterated shock because he knew exactly what he was seeing, and he knew he could not sit idly by while a young woman was being tortured in the dark. He knew he couldn't play hero alone, so he made the smartest move possible and reached out to Carly. I can only imagine the look on her face when she heard the truth come spilling out of his mouth. The realization that her daughter was never on a mission, that she was being held against her will while the world moved on, must have shattered her heart into a million pieces. You know exactly what happens when you mess with a mother like Carly, and you know even better what happens when you pull Sonny into the equation. The moment Carly told him, the gears started turning in his head, and he didn't wait for a second invitation. He mobilized his resources with the kind of cold, lethal efficiency that only a man who has ruled the underworld for decades can possess. They were going to war, not for business, not for territory, but for the one thing that matters more than anything else: family. Think about the weight of that night. Sonny and Carly moving through the shadows, the silence of the night broken only by the sound of their resolve. They approached Windermere with one goal and one goal only. While Sonny and his men created a chaotic distraction from the outside, turning the heat up on the perimeter to draw the guards away, Carly and Lucas slipped into the underground tunnels. I get chills just thinking about it. The tension in those tunnels must have been suffocating, every drop of water dripping from the ceiling sounding like a gunshot. Pascal, thinking he had everything under control, suddenly realized the game had changed. He tried to drag Jocelyn away to keep her hidden, but the tables had turned. Sonny blocked his path, a wall of iron resolve standing between the predator and his prey, while Carly lunged forward, her heart screaming for her daughter. Can you feel the intensity? The confrontation was explosive. Pascal, caught between the wrath of the most dangerous man in Port Charles and the desperate, fierce love of a mother, finally folded like a house of cards. He was neutralized before he could even dream of alerting Sidwell. The moment Carly shattered the lock on that cell door and wrapped her arms around Jocelyn, I think all of us felt that sigh of relief across the screen. But guys, let us not get too comfortable yet. Even though Jocelyn is out, the truth of her imprisonment is just the tip of the iceberg. We have to ask ourselves, who else is involved? Is Pascal just a pawn in a much bigger, more lethal game of chess? I think we all know the answer to that. This was not just a kidnapping, it was a test of strength, a warning shot fired into the heart of the Corinthos Empire. If you ask me, this entire ordeal is going to trigger a chain reaction that will shake Port Charles to its very foundation. We're looking at a situation where the lines between the WSB, the criminal underworld, and the personal lives of our favorites are blurring into one massive, chaotic mess. Sonny is clearly on edge, and Carly is not going to rest until she finds out who authorized this and makes them pay in ways that will make us all gasp. We are talking about deep-seated corruption that reaches far beyond the walls of Windermere. Every time we think we have reached the bottom, we find a new level of depravity. I am keeping my eyes glued to every single detail because I know, deep in my gut, that this is only the beginning of a much larger, darker, and more dangerous conflict. You guys better stay tuned to every single second of what comes next, because you absolutely cannot afford to miss a single heartbeat of this saga.